All right. So, Misþyrming's Misþyrming, Misþyrming, yeah. Med 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 hamri. Misþyrming's Med hamri is the third full length album from this Icelandic band led by a musician who goes under DG. And this one was interesting because they sort of teased it, and the press release was basically saying that this is a earnest heavy metal record from this sort of black metal visionary and from an important figure in the evolution of Icelandic black metal beyond the late 90s through the 2010s. And most notable for their first album so far, which uh, I think was more a product of an ideation within a scene more than the evolution that came beyond it. So, yeah, I don't even know where to start with this one. I thought it was pretty interesting, and in a good way. I mean, like, there's a lot to talk about here. A lot of when you say that this is a heavy metal record coming from a primarily atmospheric black metal band thus far, granted, there's a lot of abstract work and pretty interesting sound design in all of these records from Misþyrming. Uh, when I think of heavy metal and Man of War and all this stuff, I'm not sure where I should go with that in terms of this group because they've evolved so much between the first release, a split release, and then the second release that I like this would kind of have to be a defining moment because each other piece had been a defining moment. And well, thankfully it was, and it has been. But finding the reference that makes sense in regard to the past is not necessarily going to make a lot of sense. So, we start off with a piece which I reference late 90s Disaster. If you're familiar with that band, it's a black thrash band, which is very much influenced by German heavy metal. And I think that's a good mindset to start with. But we find Misþyrming's own personality more important than references to heavy metal up front. And charisma really sells those moments as the riffs start to sink in and the guitar work is quite fine. The drum work is excellent on this record. I think this is a different drummer than I think each record has had a different drummer on it. And I couldn't help but push the sort of this is heavy metal attitude thing out of mind for the sake of just appreciating the assault of quality and well thought black metal guitar work coming up front. And the performances really eventually sold the idea of this heavy metal attitude, even though that's really just a way of priming the mind for where they're coming from. And um, so I think that the that spectacular like put this band on stage feeling comes up front, and the first several tracks are exciting, probably crowd pleasing. There are songs like I'd like to learn to play on the guitar right away. They're very catchy. There's like this certain bliss that happens within the second song on the record that's just incredible. I just like it really is a heavy metal moment in practical terms. But the more ornate and obfuscated style of guitar playing that the band are somewhat known for doesn't show up until later on in the album when they're sort of working out the sort of second half of the second act. And I think that's where the album will get more interesting for people who really want the details. And the first half of the album is really about putting on a big show. And I think I personally go for like the big show. Obviously, I think that it pulled me back into the record over and over. Um, the interesting thing is that they uh, at the whenever they begin to sort of reach that point of riskily touching upon heavy metal cheese, they work in these dark ambient and the sort of dark electronic segues in between each piece, which uh, they kind of kill the mood in an effective and important way. So I, it it helps l- allow each piece have its own momentum and let it be memorable, and gives you a second to sort of sync up with what you just heard and probably want to hear it again. And I think that's uh, in strong contrast to what they had done with the previous album, which kind of flowed together in one blast and just kind of hit and left you to sort of parse it out. I think that's why a lot of people compared it to like a Maguire album, is because it it flowed in such a way and it had a certain character to it, even if it was a different sort of thing. So yeah, I think this record, it still is sticking in mind even after having reviewed it and gone through the whole end of the year process of, going through hundreds of records. And I think it's because not only the charisma it's delivered with, but because there are some just legitimately memorable, catchy songs on here, and in a on a record where there is really an economy for space. So I think that I don't know if this is Misþyrming setting up like a decisive personality that they can really live with yet, or if this is just a cool thing that they've done that it happens to be their third album. I think it's a very strong evolution beyond, there were many years in between the actual undertaking of the albums. So there's an appropriate amount of growth that appears here that I really enjoyed. And yeah, I think it rewards deeper listening, but it can just kind of be a cool thing too. And I really like that balance where uh, good music is also smart music at the same time. So anyway, a lot more details and all that in the review. You can check that out and read it and see if this is your kind of thing, because it was one of my favorite records of the year. I think I put it, not to spoil anything for you, but it is up and posted. I think it was up at number 20, something like that. So it's great. Check it out.